Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Lucas Barros. I will be your host today in one more session of BBE Lives. Today, we would like to start our conversation asking you to follow our YouTube channel and also follow us on our social networks, especially on Facebook, to keep update of everything we are doing about our lives, about our tours, about everything that is going on behind the scenes. And you would also we would like to invite you to check out our playlist on our YouTube channel. We have a lot of tours videos where you can check a little bit and understand a little bit what goes around our tours, and also get to know a little bit about our team and our guides and everything that is going on behind the scenes. So wherever you are, feel free to join us and follow us. Today we will have a kind of a different team on our lives today. We're gonna pause a little bit, talking about our tours, and we are gonna start talking about different teams. Now, the first team that we are gonna start today is about bird feeders and how it interacts with tourism. Tourism, especially regarding the bird tourism in Brazil. And just to give you a little bit of context, in 2023, there was a survey that was sent to our clients and bit for our newsletter, and we got 81 answers. And today we're going to present the answers about how our clients and our friends see feeders in the context of bird tourism in Brazil. Uh, After the pandemic in 2020-21, a lot of people started to put feeders on their houses and start to observing lives in a different way since they couldn't go out. And that's one of the reasons that feeders became like a fever, not only in Brazil, but I think in a lot of places around the world. So we want to talk a little bit about the perspectives concerning that team, and there are some opinions that we got from a lot of people all around the world. So let's start. And I would like to introduce you and invite Caio Brito to join us. He'll be the one presenting this slide for you.
Aye. Good evening, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Lucas. Let's see the results that we had from this survey. So like Lucas said, we'll be introducing this theme of bird feeders, which is a very, for some people, it's a controversial subject, and each person has their personal opinion, of course. And here we tried to bring together all of the answers we got in this presentation to show you, and it will stay recorded in our YouTube channel. So just so you know, we had 81 responses. So I consider that a considerable number that we could take into account the opinion of all these people that gave us their feedback on the questions we've made. So just to give you a little bit of context, I'm not sure if you can see the mouse here, but let's begin in the Amazon. Just to say that our company, Brazil Birding Experts, we run tours all over Brazil. So in total, considering our set departure tours, which we're calling here as our traditional tours, we cover 86% of the Brazilian species and 91 of the endemic birds in our country. And when we talk about coming from north onto, to the east and then further south, when the feeders kind of change. When you have in the Amazon, let's say, it's not so much about feeders, it's more about puddles of water that attract bird species in the dry season. And then you go to the northeast, you have very few lodges with bird feeders, And the ones that you do have bird feeders, they attract many photographers in Brazil. For those of you who don't know, there's a website called We Aves, which people have their profile, and you can upload species, and it sums up to your account. So there's species per location, species per region, and each person has their profile, number of photos, number of species, and all that. So what we notice is that when there's an active feeder in a lodge, it does attract a lot of people. And Brazilian photographers and bird watchers do travel to these areas. And then when you go more to the southeast and southern region, you have much more, many more places where you find possibilities of very, very good feeders that we'll show a few here in this presentation. So we'll go through a little bit of the role of bird feeders in tourism. And then we'll see the questions we've made and the bird watcher's perspective on feeders. And then we come with some final considerations and perspectives. So feeders is interesting because this connection that we have with animals. Sorry about the title there. It should be the role of feeders in tourism. So the interaction that human beings have with animals come from ancient times in history. You see Egyptians relating with figures of felines, of cats, and humans have always hunted and things like that. So I don't know, particularly speaking, when I attend to feeder and I'm able to get close to these wild creatures, it brings something deep inside that is kind of hard to explain. And it's also a connection, for kids even. And I bring now a video that Fabio will put that is my older child when she was only about 1.5, 2 years old, and her interaction with the feeder we had back in the days. Fabio, can you roll the video, please?
Quem que tá aí, filho? Cadê? Mostra.
Aqui.
Onde?
Aqui.
Olha.
So very short video. Like Lucas said, in the pandemic, we didn't have much to do, so we started to maintain a bird feeder. And after a few months, me and Tatiana, my wife, we were already buying nearly 20 kilos of bananas. And there were days in winter where the birds would eat 75 bananas. That was the highest count. And we did notice, the interest of Louisa, our oldest child, and interaction with the bird feeder. So that there in the video we just showed was the dusky-legged guan. And there were 2 individuals that would show up every day. And we would have, I'd say, a relationship with them, So, and I think that bond created in that time of her life is something that she'll carry forever. And it's a very, in my opinion, a very important interaction. And so through bird feeders, tourists say that they feel a sense of communion with animals and have the chance to observe details that are hard to notice when the birds are away from the feeders. So I also bring another video, short video, and I'd like you to watch it in detail. Please, Fabio. So that there, everyone, was a brown tinamou. And when and where in the world would you see such a bird in so many details for such a long time? And usually, when you do see this bird outside of this situation where it's coming, to feed and you're behind a hide, usually it involves many minutes, I'd say sometimes hours of playback. And so the question is, what is better, right? So playback, excessive playback, or this. And even with excessive playback, you would never have this type of view, that the time, the quality, seeing so much detail. And so feeders increase also the chances of observing various species and play an important role for tour operators, local communities, and tourists, resulting in benefits for the birds. So you can see here in this image is Ciro, and on the foreground there's a variegated antpitta, which is also a very difficult bird to see, and even this way. And the other bird is a cryptic ant thrush, also known, another name is Such's ant thrush. And you can see a little bit of corn there, just under the bill. And these are two birds that also involve much, playback to see them. And in these situations with these people feeding the birds, the bird is not only possible, but you have fantastic photo opportunities. I'm not sure if there's a video, Fabio. If there is, you can play it. If not, I'll... So how many species at once in a bird feeder? This is one of our friends' lodge called Ninho da Cambacica. It's in the state of São Paulo, in the city of Ubatuba. And during the winter time, it's just fantastic. So many birds. So I counted, I think, 7 or 8 species, not counting the species that are calling in the background, like bare-throated bellbird. But you see a lot of activity, and this is usually from May to August, beginning of September. So you have May, June, July, August, at least 4 months with very, very active feeders, where you can see all those birds that are abundant, but once in a while, you get a black-legged Dacnus, you get a Brazilian tanager. So you have the common visitors, but you also have some surprises. And for the photographers that are seeking good photos, it's an ideal chance to have this opportunity. And so continuing on, we had 81 responses, and I'll show them now to you guys. So do you have feeders at home was the first question, and almost 70% said they do. I think that outside of Brazil, it's very common. I remember, when I go to visit my sister that lives in the United States, or on previous visits to the United States, it's something that people usually have. There's not lots, but there are stores just, that sell things for birds, which is very interesting. So I guess it's something pretty much cultural. And I'd say that a big chunk of this, almost 70%, does consist of US citizens, maybe. And the photo here, was our feeders when we had our feeders. Very simple, but very, very active. It was a time where I got some really nice photos of many birds. Second question was, a bird feeder included in a tour is decisive for me to sign up for it. And then we had this scale from 1 to 5, 5 being certainly and 1 being not at all. So results showed that very, very few people do decide a tour based on feeders. However, I do think that this is in such a way, let's say, biased, because we sent this questionnaire to people signed up in our newsletters, and they consist more of birders and birdwatchers and not photographers. So I do believe that for photographers, feeders is decisive, of course, on the tour. But I thought you'd like to know this information, that most of our clients are birders and bird watchers. Third question is, I can spend hours in a bird feeder during a birding tour. And then it goes the other way around, more towards the certainly, and then in between. So many people do enjoy hanging around a bird feeder. I'm certainly one of those. It's funny because sometimes, even though I've been to Ninho da Cambasica, let's say, which is this photo right there, I've been there many, many times, but every time I go back, it's the same birds, but I always get the camera, and I'm always so excited, to see these birds again, and it always seems like they're in a different position or acting a different way or in different numbers and whatever. I just really enjoy the opportunity of having bird feeders on the tours that I'm guiding. Fourth question was, I only visit a bird feeder during a tour if it has a new bird for me. And then those are the results, right? So only 7 people, right? So 8% said that is the only way that they would visit a bird feeder. But as we usually observe, it's also always weighed. We usually don't spend lots and lots of hours if the tour isn't based on this. But if it's, how do you say, inserted inside the birding day, people usually do tend to really enjoy it because of the reasons I've mentioned previously, right? Bird photo opportunities, see the birds closer, behavior, and things like that. I prefer to see a new bird at a bird feeder than on the trail. And here, only one person responded that they would prefer this, and all the rest said no. So many people prefer to see a new bird if it's on a trail and not coming to a feeder. But I think that I had a video for this, if I'm not mistaken. Did I, Fabio? I think there is a video. So what if the new bird is a red and white crake? Like, like the video that we showed many times, that is a new bird for people, and that's where you're going to see it. And to be honest, I don't think I'd go against that. So many times, this is what people answered. But if that's the opportunity and that's the chance you'll get, I think many people would go for that. So the question is, I prefer, so not only. And this is the case for many birds, like the ocellated crake, red and white crake. Used to be the case with rufous-faced crake, and many others, where the chance you'll have of seeing one of these birds will be coming to mealworms or shredded corn or something like that. If you must pay an extra fee to visit a bird feeder that doesn't add any new birds for the tour, are you keen to go for it? And here are the responses. Many people say no, right? Not at all. And the other votes are pretty much spread out. But sometimes things change. So there's one. So this here on the photo is Sítio Macuquinho, which is also in the São Paulo state. And they have just so many different photo opportunities with reflecting water, with bromeliads, with orchids, with this and that. And then they have the hides, and then they have the things coming to mealworms, to shredded corn. And then you also have the example of Lajeado dos Beija-Flores, which is in Boa Nova, state of Bahia, which is inserted in one of our, in all of our Northeast tours. And it's a place that mixes everything, that you have new birds, you have Caatinga endemics, and you also have birds that you've seen on the tour already, but this place gives you the opportunity of seeing it, in a way that you haven't seen it before, and you will never see the bird the same way again. So it does add visual opportunities for people visiting Brazil. Feeders are important to boost birding tourism in local communities. So here I think is almost unanimous, where it certainly is. Very few people responded in the other spectrum of no. And being in the business so Ciro has been for the last 20 years. I joined him 12 years ago, and we founded Brazil Birding Experts 8 years ago. And seeing how things are changing and how things are modeling, we do see that this is not a case of opinion. It's a case of a fact. This feeders and feeding birds has changed lives in Brazil. So we have cases of people that were palm heart extractors, illegal palm heart extractors, and they became birding guides, and feeding birds is what made them famous, and absolutely forget the palm heart industry. So it changes lives, it changes communities, and it changes conservation. This is a photo here of me and Tachi in the background with a saffron toucanet. I was just trying to eat my banana, and it jumped on me and stole my banana. And this is in Trilha dos Tucanos. Many of you who are watching this might have heard this name, and it's one of the most active feeders in the Southeast, without a doubt, world famous. And the birds are just super tame. And speaking of another situation, which I think there is a video, we have the Pompeu brothers, these twins in the state of Minas Gerais, where they became nationally famous because they had a tame ocellated crake. And many people traveled there just to see this tame ocellated crake. So many Brazilians, and of course all of our tours passing by Minas Gerais, also go there, and thanks to their effort. And so it does boost tourism in this local town that before they existed wasn't even known in the birding world. So Fabio, please. So this video here was with my cell phone. I just laid the cell phone there and started filming, and it just passed through. And this bird, guys, it's a crake that's this big. It's tiny. It's very small, and it was held as the grass ghost, the ghost of the Cerrado grasses. You know, you would always hear them, but seeing them was a different story. And these guys, they just, you know, brought them to the world, and there you go. So other question was, people should avoid using bird feeders because it causes more problems than benefits. And then we see the spectrum where agrees with what I just mentioned previously. No, not at all. Here is, again, the cryptic ant thrush, the Such's ant thrush, with Duco in Petar, which is near Intervalos. And Duco finding bird nests, feeding birds and everything like that just completely changed his life. And this is one of the birds that I'm not sure if it's still tame, but it used to be, and people that needed or wanted to see this bird had this super pleasant experience of seeing it like this, like you see on the photo. And so in your opinion, bird feeding supplementation is? So in this question, we allowed multiple answers, okay? And we have highlighted here the answers with the highest responses, higher percentages. And so I'll read 4 of them. So bird feeding supplementation is great to see the bird in detail and to learn about bird ID. Bird feeding supplementation is a great tool to see rare or secretive species. It's also an excellent tool for photographers to avoid the excessive use of playback. And the feeders are a perfect way to engage people with limited access to trails. So these are the top voted positive sides of bird feeding supplementation. And then on the other hand, the other question was, in your opinion, is supplemental feeding to wild birds dangerous? And then we bring here the top 3 voted, which is light green, dark green, and red. And here are the answers. It can create good conditions to spread diseases among birds, even with the proper hygiene practices. Another argument, it can increase the probability of the birds becoming a prey of domestic animal. And third, we don't have enough scientific evidence on this practice impacts on the bird's life. So it would be, I forgot the English word, but it would be wrong to ignore these opinions, these facts, maybe. I do agree that there is not enough scientific evidence. I had in my house bird feeders for around 3 years before we gave up due to time. It is time consuming. So when you go visit a bird feeder and there's a fee, think on the side that it is a lot of hard work. It is a lot of time to buy the fruits, to spread the fruits, to keep a proper hygiene. and to help, in conservation. So if there's a fee, it's well deserved. Okay. But in our feeders, in my personal observation, I did not feel that the birds were changing, let's say, from season to season. But I have visited feeders that I've seen birds with, a dodgy eye or like warts around the feet. And that got me thinking like, I wonder what this is. I wonder if the bird feeder brought this disease. I wonder if it could be spread. So I think these are points to consider without a doubt. And I also know of cases where many times in these places that have feeders, they don't have domestic animals. But I've heard of many stories where forest falcons and forest hawks come to hunt the birds coming to the feeder. So imagine seeing that, quite a spectacle. So there are those counter arguments, and they should be taken into consideration. But I always like to see from the perspective of a scale, you know what I mean? So what are the benefits? What are the counterparts, and what weighs more, So to see children just being completely fascinated and have their lives change in that moment that they see a bird up close, that's worth something, that's worth something. So I think more scientific studies would be very nice. I know they've done many, of course. I know some with hummingbirds, that they saw that the hummingbirds don't abandon, flower visitation in other times of the year. So I think it's just a matter of carrying on further studies and just taking into account all the benefits that it also brings. And just as closing thoughts, feeders enhances people's connection with nature. Like I've said, currently feeders are very important for local family businesses, without a doubt. We could easily do lives here just on the many lodges that what propelled them into the birding industry was the fact that they had active feeders. Okay. There are numerous reports from people about how bird watching tourism has impacted their lives, of course. And consequently, these lives changes affect bird and nature conservation, transforming how people perceive and value the life around them. So in many cases, people buy lands to build these places. A perfect example is Lajeado dos Beija-Flores in southern Bahia, where many years ago, Ciro was guiding this Brazilian couple. And it's a place that naturally, there's these ground cactuses. And after 2:30 or 3 p.m., the flowers naturally open, and all these hummingbirds from around come to this rocky outcrop with these ground cactuses. And it's just a hummingbird frenzy. And when Ciro took this couple there, he said, yeah, it's such a fantastic place, such a magical place, but it's under threat. The cattle just come in and stomp on everything. People use ground cactuses for witchery, so they would extract these. And then this couple said, okay. And then 1 or 2 years later, they bought the land. And today it's the famous Lajeado dos Beija-Flores, which is one of the best feeding stations in Brazil, and I'd say maybe in the world. So these initiatives do change lives, they do change communities, and they do help in conservation. Okay, and so with that being said, thank you all for watching. I think this is a very important subject to bring. I'm not sure how many of you are watching. although it's an important subject to keep online, to keep this discussion active, and I don't know if there's any questions in the chat, but also Lucas, that's our host today. He has studied the white-brown swan, Lucas, the white-brown
That's it.
and the feeding stations related to bird research and conservation. So he could bring another perspective outside of tourism and bring it to science and conservation.
That's it, Caio. During my master's degree back in 2021, something around that, I was conducting a survey. Fabio, can you please put the, thank you. I was conducting a survey. It was a big survey, and I'll just talk a little bit about the feeding part over here, né? But the whole research was to find out and discover new things about the diet and feeding management of the white-browed guan and its potential as a seed dispersal in the Caatinga. And just to provide you a little bit of context, the guans in general, they are among the most important feeds dispersals, seeds dispersal in the new tropics, because mostly because of their size, they can eat seeds and fruits that most of the birds and some smaller mammals, for example, can't. So a lot of tree species depend hardly on them, those crassids, to spread and their seeds and disperse their seeds. And in my case, I was studying this one in a hotel in Caatinga, in Ceará, which is the place that we usually go on our tours, the Northeast, to see this bird. And I was basically studying them for 2 years. Every 3 months, I was there, and I was conducting a field survey, collecting feces and analyzing those feces. And particularly in this hotel, they have a feeder, and also I had like a control area with no feeders and no interactions, active interactions with the white-browed guans. And I'm going to show you just a little bit of the effect of the feeders that the feeders had on that population of white-browed guans that lived in the hotel, which has the feeders. And this will be quick. I'll not take too much of the time here, but if you can see in this map, that red round marker represents the place where the feeder was. So basically, I was conducting this survey in the dry season and also in the rainy season. And to explain a little bit about what is going on in that map, if you can see that those yellow triangles, they mark the spots where I found stool samples during the dry season. So the yellow triangles are representative of the samples that I found in the dry season. And as you can see, they are basically concentrated around the feeders. So in the dry season of the Caatinga, there is few resources available for especially if you are talking about fruits availability, because everything is dry. Most of the trees don't even have leaves, so you can imagine if they will have fruits. So basically, the feeders represent an important role to complement the diet of those birds during the dry season. And if you see the other point, Fabio, can you put the map on full screen, please? You can see the blue or green triangles. Those triangles, they represent the samples that I found during the rainy season, which means that everything was green and most of the trees there were with fruits. And just to keep it a reminder, the feeder was still active during the dry season. And as you can see, all the samples that I found during the dry season was concentrated very far away from the feeder, and that area concentrates concentrated most of the fruitiferous species in this area. So basically, what can we conclude about this? The When there are fruits available, the white-browed ones, they don't care if there is a feeder or if there's not. They want to eat their fruits. That's what they like, and that's include keeping his ecological function preserved. So basically, this my data shows that the feeders has a positive impact on the survival of this group and this population that lived in this area, specifically the hotel. And as you can see, the distribution between the dry season and the rainy season of the behavior and of the bird uh, shows that the feeders does not affect anything on the ecological function of the bird, so it remains preserved with no effects on the role that he plays for nature as a seed dispersive. And another important thing is that helps keeping the population of those birds around that area, especially if that area is protected, which is the case in the hotel, because it's a private protected area. So besides the support and the ecological function, keeping those animals there because of the feeders help a lot to keep the birds in a preserved and protected area. And we are talking about an endangered species endemic to the Caatinga. So it can be used as a conservancy strategy to protect endangered species and keeping them in places that they will be protected. Basically, that's it. During my research, I would like to complement a little bit about what Caio said about the negative impacts, especially for feeders. I tried a lot to see if there is anything available on scientific data, and basically, we have no data that is really reliable showing negative effects like disease and something like that. It is possible, but we don't have data showing that. On the other hand, we have like good and well-established data that feeders can do help conservancy projects and strategies to help, especially with endemic species. If you see the big picture that you're keeping an endangered species in a protected area by using the feeders there. And basically that's it. I would like to present this other side of the feeders to complement what Caio said. And do we have any questions on the chat?
Lucas, just giving a little bit of context from a guide's perspective, right? Because I always like to. It was very interesting to hear the results of your study and the perspective, and it's funny how they match with what we would see from times and times of visiting the same area and seeing with our own eyes what's happening. So guys, the white-browed guan is a threatened species, I believe.
It is, yes, endangered.
Yeah, endangered. And in the state of Ceará, there's in Ceará state, which is the state I'm from, where Lucas is from, Cira is from, there's a phrase that says, if it's a living thing and it weighs more than 300 grams, you kill it and you eat it. So imagine a big chicken. It's very, very much hunted. So this is an area of a hotel, Pedra dos Ventos, which is one of the areas that we go, that the guy, he started to put corn and started to track these animals. And every year that I come back, it's just amazing. It's amazing how it's more and more. And when I started guiding this tour 12 years ago, this was a bird that was, let's say, one of a guide's nightmare. You would maybe see it in one of the first locations in a mountain called Guaramiranga, and you maybe would see it in Quixadá, but you would have to walk, you would have to play back and pray for one to respond here or there, and then you would see it from a mile away. It was something that they were very skittish, they were very scared, they were very hunted. And with this, the numbers have just gone up, and like Lucas said, we're talking here about big seed dispersers that are raising in numbers and quantity. So it's something it's unbelievable every time I go there.
Just to give it like a kind of a number perspective, during my master's degree, which was between 2019 and 2022, let's say that I saw like flocks with maybe 30 or 40 individuals. That was the most. If you go back there in the same area, the Hotel Pedra dos Ventos, during the dry season where the feeder is active, you can count at least 50 right now. And we are talking about 2 or 3 years where the population in that area almost doubled. So it's a interesting thing, and we should really think of that as a conservation strategy, especially for those birds that play a vital role in ecological regeneration and things like that.
For sure, for sure. And this that you're talking here is a guan, okay? But if the guan itself can bring tourism, and tourism brings commerce, right? It circulates money in that area. But sometimes it's an even more charismatic species, and it really does bring people in. So it's just the stories, the so many stories are just so interesting. And so, Lucas, I think that we had just some comments, okay? But in this subject of Caatinga and feeders and things like that, I'd like to end this live with a bird feeder from one of the places that we visit. And it's just another one of those stories where not only the feeders, but the hard work of a local guide just brought a place that was unknown in the past to the knowing of this place to the whole world, which is Sítio Pau Preto. And we're gonna finish this live just on this video, and I'd like to say goodbye to you all.
Yeah.
And Lucas, thank you very much for tuning in, for the support. I don't know if you want to say anything else.
Yes, I would like to thank everyone who took the time to spend with us in this live section, and also to everyone who answered that survey that we sent sometime a while ago. So the data is really important to put out those numbers and to see how other people from all around the world see the bird feeders and how it interacts with the conservancy and tourism in general. And I would like to invite everyone here to check out our YouTube channel once again. There's a lot of interesting videos about our tours, about our guide, and to get to know a little bit more about our work that in the Brazil birding expert teams. And also would like to thank you, Fabio and Vivianis from Barong. They are operating this live session, all the technical support. Thank you, Fabio and Vivi. And just to finish, you talked about the Sítio Pau Preto. Also would like to make an invitation. If you go to our website, there's a new blog post telling a little bit about that story. So if you get interested to learn a little bit more about Sítio Pau Preto and Jefferson Bob histories and Yvette, just go on our website on the blog section. There is a post about it, and it's really interesting and really nice to know. So with that in mind, I think that's it. If you don't have anything else to say, Caio, I think Fabio can put the video, and see you again on the next YouTube session, BBE live session. Keep posted on our Facebook and other social networks to see the date and the team from the next live session. Thank you again, and see you next time.
Valeu, Lucão. É
Valeu.
nóis. Bye bye, guys.